Hi friends, Unit 8, Lesson 8. There's two kind of big ideas here, one overarching. One overarching is we're going to talk about quadrilaterals today. We're stepping out of the world of triangles and moving into the world of quadrilaterals. And most of us know that quad means four. So we're talking about objects that have four sides. And there's some vocabulary that goes along with these quadrilaterals, and I'm just going to go over definitions and over categories with you today, and then in math workshop tomorrow we will do some real intense study on the different kinds of quadrilaterals and the different characteristics of them. So if you could just kind of have a good understanding and write down some of these definitions, you'll be ready for our activities tomorrow. So the first thing I want you to look at here are these quadrilaterals. All four of these shapes are quadrilaterals, have four sides. That's what the word quadrilateral means. In all of these quadrilaterals, the sides are labeled A and B and C and D, all of them. But each of them are A and B are adjacent to each other. The sides labeled B and C are adjacent to each other. So if you're not looking at the screen right now, you need to. A and B are adjacent to one another. B and C are adjacent to each other. What do you think it means for two sides to be adjacent? Stop and ponder this question for a moment. A short and condensed version for you are, that's when two sides are adjacent if they meet at a point. So if they meet at a point, they are adjacent. So if you notice, A meets B right here. B meets C right here. B meets A right here. B meets C right here, and so on. So which other sides of these figures are adjacent to one another? Well, C and D, and A and D. And it's the same on all four of the quadrilaterals. Now here's another word that you need to understand, adjacent and opposite. And we have to understand these two words, opposite and adjacent, because they're used in a lot of the definitions for quadrilaterals. That's the whole reason we need to understand these definitions. In all of the quadrilaterals, the sides labeled A and C, so we have A and C, A and C, A and C, A and C. These are considered opposite of each other, opposites, opposite sides, opposite sides, opposite sides. So what do you think for what it means for two sides to be opposite of each other? Two sides are opposite if they are across from each other or if they meet at a point. Well, A and C don't meet at a point. A and C don't meet at a point. C and A don't meet at a point. So the basic factors here are if they're across from each other. They're across from each other, that means they're opposite, okay? So some of the sides that are, the other ones that are opposite are B and D. I think opposite's easier to understand than adjacent, if you want my personal opinion. Now the second page of our work goes into the definitions. There's, and the different types of quadrilaterals, okay? So we're not going to do a lot of writing on this page unless you want to write down the definitions on a piece of note page, okay? And if you do that and show it to me tomorrow, I will give you a caught in the act. Some quadrilaterals are special because they have parallel sides or right angles. You already know about rectangles and squares because we did a lot of that work in our primary grades. Other types of quadrilaterals are special. They're the trapezoid, the parallelogram, and the rhombus. You can list each type and describe its sides and angles. So all of these, it's like they can have Each one of these shapes can have these words. So it could be a quadrilateral. All of these are quadrilaterals because they're all 4 sides. Does everybody see that? Each one of these can be considered a quadrilateral. Okay? Then you have parallelograms, which have 4 sides, but they have 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. So this side and this side are parallel. This side and this side are parallel. So this would be a parallelogram is considered a quadrilateral. Could you consider a rectangle? 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel, 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. So a rectangle could be considered a parallelogram. A rhombus has 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel, and a square has 2 opposite sides parallel. So a square, a rectangle, and rhombus all could also be considered a parallelogram, just by those terms. Now, can a parallelogram be a rectangle? No, because in a rectangle, you have 4 right angles. Can a rhombus be considered a rectangle? No, because it doesn't have any right angles. Can a rectangle be considered a square? No, because a square has 4 equal sides and rectangles doesn't have 4 equal sides. But a square could be considered, because of the 4 right angles, could be considered a rectangle. I know that's a little confusing, but because of certain characteristics, it can be considered certain things for right angles. So now we go into rhombus. And rhombus, its clarifying definition is 4 equal sides. So technically, because there's 2 pairs of opposite sides, it can be considered a parallelogram. 4 equal sides makes it a rhombus, but a rhombus could also be considered a square because it has 4 equal sides. Or I'm sorry, a square can be considered a rhombus because of the 4 equal sides. A rhombus can't be a square because of why? The 4 right angles. So what you notice here is that each one of these can be called one of the other things. You just have to look at the things that they share and the things they don't share, and that's how you know whether or not. And we're going to be making a chart tomorrow that'll make this flow a little bit better. You just have to understand the basics. Now a trapezoid is a quadrilateral because it has to have 4 sides, but it has exactly 1 pair of sides that are parallel. So this side and this side are parallel. This side and this side are parallel. They run like that. So, like I said, you just need to have like the basic knowledge of this, and we will do the rest in class tomorrow. On the next page, it actually asks you to draw a quadrilateral that has exactly 1 pair of opposite sides parallel. What type of quadrilateral is that? So if I were looking on this, it says 1 pair of opposite sides parallel. I know it's talking about a trapezoid. So I made myself a trapezoid where only 2 sides are parallel. Now, in this next one, it says, draw a quadrilateral that has 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. What type of quadrilateral is it? Is there more than one answer? Well, if I look back at my chart and it's telling me I need 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 options that it could be. It could be any one of, if that's the only criteria it gives you, 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel, it could be any one of those shapes. And I did that. I drew them. You can choose to draw 1, but it can be any of those 4 with that criteria. 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. It didn't give any other criteria. It didn't say anything about angles. It didn't give anything about sides, just two pairs of opposite sides parallel. Parallel, 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 parallel. So I'm hoping that you kind of see that one. The last one here, draw a quadrilateral that has two pairs of opposite sides parallel, 4 equal sides, and no right angles. So if I go back, no right angles, so it can't be a square and it can't be a rectangle. But it said two pairs of opposite sides and 4 equal sides. So it must be a rhombus. You see how I got rid of the criteria, used the criteria that it gave me, and then I was able to master it. That's the basis of tonight's lesson, and I know there's 2 more pages. Please make sure you bring them tomorrow because I am using those for our focus work tomorrow in the teacher group, and I look forward to exploring quadrilaterals a little bit more with you tomorrow, but you just need to understand that quadrilaterals means 4 sides, and that there are several different kinds of quadrilaterals that you can have based on certain criteria. And like I said, we'll play with it a little bit more in depth tomorrow. Have a nice night.